Hi, I'm Beth.
And I'm Zany.
And you're listening to Mixed Politics. Welcome to episode 35.
Mm-hmm.
Zany, what are you drinking?
I'm back to my roots. This is just a regular old rum and Coke with a splash of lime juice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to have to buy you a shirt that says a splash of lime juice because that's what you're always going to...
Yeah. I make shirts too, so hopefully a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking a margarita because it's just that kind of night.
All right.
I need to get good and drunk for this one.
I'm excited about this now.
Yeah. I'm glad that you are because this was a topic tonight that I suggested, and at first Danny was kind of like, well, I've already talked about it. I'm like, yeah, but it's different. And I'm glad that you're on board now with it,
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about.
To be honest, I still feel a lot the same way I did when I was just like, I don't want to talk about this again. And the reason is, well, we'll get into that. What are we talking about tonight, Beth?
What's going on with the Presidential Records Act and Biden's documents?
Biden documents.
Yes, Biden this time. We already did an episode where we talked about Trump's documents, but apparently it wasn't enough.
This is why I wasn't really on board with talking about this, because the way I see it is this. I'm not going to be biased, and because first of all, I don't even like Biden. I don't know anyone who does. So
Agreed.
That's whatever. But like the way when I was getting ready and preparing to do this podcast, I was like, every single thing that I said before in the other one applies directly to this one.
Exactly.
So if you want to know what I feel like or how I think, just go watch that one. Just erase out the Trump name and just put Biden right in it, and then I'd be like, yeah. But there's a lot of things that we know more about Trump's situation and less about Biden's situation, and that is by design, because one is a complete idiot and the other one, it doesn't matter what he is, he has surrounded himself with smarter people.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the difference.
Well, the main reason I thought it was still worthy of us to talk about, and the initial pitch that I made to you, is there's so many lies being told about the laws and the ethics behind this stuff because of those who tried to defend Trump having his documents. And so now that Biden has documents, they're both equally wrong for having them. But the justification I'm hearing that people are supporting Trump and saying he didn't do anything wrong and saying that Biden is bad for doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. It's
all rooted in lies. And I felt like it was extremely important for us to reiterate some of the stuff that we talked about, but in a different light, maybe a little bit, more understandable. Even I thought it was pretty clear what the other episode that we did, I thought it was pretty clear, but let's look at it from a slightly different angle, giving the same information, but drawing a finer point to it, because I think it's extremely important that if Biden is in any danger of being impeached over this, that both Republicans and Democrats need to have some factual basis to this, because I think a case could be made, but we don't want to look at this with false information and false context of the law behind this stuff to use it as an impeachment. So that's why I think it's worth covering again.
All right. Well, let's cover it.
Yeah, so the Presidential Records Act of 1978, I will link our prior episode below where I gave a lot of historical context, what led up to that law being created. I'm not going to redraw that here. So I'll link it below. But what I want to talk about is the Presidential Records Act explicitly states that every single document that the president or his cabinet or anybody else in the office touches, creates, or sees has to go to the National Archives, period, end of story. They get everything. It has to be archived because that's kind of their job. So it's not as if it's wrong for presidents to have certain documents, but it's whether they asked for it legally, and that when they leave office in January of the year after the other person is elected, when they leave, 100% of their documents goes to the National Archives. There is no way around that. The National Archives does their process where they archive everything. They have every copy, if multiple copies of a document are made, every single one of them has to go to the National Archives. The former president or former vice president or former Department of Justice head or whatever, the Attorney General, they can request that the National Archives return their copies back, but it has to go to them first.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so many people that don't understand the very simple thing about that law. It's like they get everything and then you can request to have certain things given back to you. And clearly, as we covered in the Trump case, he didn't do that.
Yeah.
He was keeping shit. And
He just grabbed them from wherever he got them and just was just like, I'm
gonna keep it.
Hold on to these.
Right.
They look funny. They look cute.
Right.
They look like I can brag to my friends.
Right, exactly.
Clearly that isn't what is happening here.
Yeah.
This person was probably working on documents.
Probably, yes. And so I'm going to read to you the exact verbiage from the National Archives website about the Presidential Records Act, because I think it can't be any more plain than this. Mm-hmm. Any records created or received by the president as part of his constitutional, statutory, or ceremonial duties are the property of the United States government and will be managed by National Archives at the end of the administration. Managed by the National Archives.
Not by yourself.
Not by yourself or anybody else. So in both the case of Trump and Biden, them having these classified documents, the first question is, did they get them back from National Archives or did they just keep them?
And that's, so according to what we know about the Trump situation, he didn't get them from the National Archives, especially the ones that were like top secret, like you can only view them in a skiff or whatever.
Right.
Because there's so little information put out about the documents that Biden has. Well, one, we do know they're not top secret.
Right.
Because
that's just recently been coming out. There's the classification level.
They're classified. But they're not top secret. But we don't know if he had requested them as a congressman or as a vice president or as president from the National Archives.
Right.
And they could have given it back to him. And there's a reason why we don't know a lot. And we're going to touch on that later.
Yeah.
But
well, the main reason I think is either Biden literally doesn't remember because he's old as fuck, or he doesn't want to say because I think in that respect, do what attorneys always tell you. Keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything incriminating. So I'm not surprised that he isn't being forthcoming with this. That doesn't, it's in stark contrast to Trump where he was like, but they're mine. Oh, but they planted them. I mean, he wouldn't keep his mouth shut. So there was no way around talking about it or assuming things about it because he was basically admitting his guilt because he said that they were his when they're actually not. So as far as we know, that was a weird little shit twist though. It was like they're mine. I declassified them. It's like, but the FBI planted them there, and it's like, well, which one is it? Yeah, exactly. We don't have that situation currently. No, because he's not saying a word, and I can't fault him for that. I mean, I certainly want to know. I would like to know. I'm not demanding to know because it's none of my fucking business, but. So in the Biden case, as far as we know, National Archives wasn't the one who came to him and said, hey, we're missing some documents. Whereas in the Trump case, they did. National Archives was like, we have some missing documents. There are some missing documents. They reached out to Trump, reached out to his attorneys. And we'll get into a lot more detail a little bit later in the show about that. But in plain differences between the two, they're both wrong for having these documents so far as we know. But if you look at the situation, National Archives went to Trump and said, we're missing documents and you hand them over. National Archives hasn't been involved yet. I think they have been, but insofar as when the documents were discovered in Biden's home, his attorneys reached out to both the National Archives and the Department of Justice and said, hey, by the way, we found these things. So when I was saying not involved, they weren't the ones who said, hey, we're missing documents. Right, they didn't. No, they never said that. Which kind of leads me to believe, just by the process of elimination, that they are not missing documents because they know if they're missing documents. Like, people are paid very handsomely to find out, hey, we're missing some shit right here. Yeah, I think that So he could very well have copies, or he could have requested them through the proper channels. It's possible. I don't know what the system is. Like, when you do request them, do you get to hold on to them?
Or do you have to return them after a certain amount of time?
No, that's a good question. You don't have to return them. So essentially, once the National Archives has them in their possession after the administration is over, they hand over everything. Because the National Archives kind of has a good idea of what's out there based on what's been covered in the news media, what has been what has transpired with different meetings with world leaders,
and
what's requested. They have a good sense of what should be there. So once they archive everything, they go through and they document who had it, who has it now. And of course, if the National Archives has it, it's in their possession. But if somebody requests it, it's one of two things. It's either a former person who had access to the document is requesting it back, or it's a FOIA request. And immediately the National Archives will keep everything kind of, I want to say it's 5 years. I'm going to have to double check, but I'll put it up here on the screen. I was reading it just today, that there's a certain amount of time that all presidential records are going to be kept in the National Archives and not let go or not transmitted to anybody else unless explicitly requested, which is usually by a president or a former president or former vice president. But then FOIA requests, I think, have a 5-year wait. So Obama's records are now subject to FOIA requests. So if anybody wants to petition the National Archives and say, hey, we want to see this stuff, the National Archives can immediately start processing those requests. But I think that the former president has an exception that they don't have to wait the 5 years to get their shit back. So they can just reach out and say, I want a copy of this. It's a redacted copy. So far as I can tell, it's redacted. They don't get the originals. They get a copy and it's redacted. Unless there's some specific reason they have to have all of the top secret stuff that can only be read in the SCIF. Which is why Trump's situation is so bad. Because it was the highest of classified documents and he didn't have them secured. Biden didn't have his security either.
Very similarly.
Yeah.
Like one of the bunch that they found was like in a room next to his garage.
Right.
Which, we've made fun of Trump for having them in like the pool room. So it's the same fucking thing. Like how you have them in the room next to the garage. It's not even, and the thing is, it was everything that I've read said room next to the garage. It's not even like a room that you can be like, okay, well, it was in the living room or it was in the like, what is this random room?
Who knows?
The broom closet next to the garage.
Right. Like who? And it's a valid question as to who has access to those rooms. Like you said earlier, we're asking the things we said about
Hunter
Trump.
Biden.
The things we said about Trump still apply here. Who has access to those locations where the documents are? So I think we have to operate with the assumption that National Archives did not know that these documents were missing. Let me rephrase. With the National Archives not having been the ones to initiate the investigation, there's two possibilities. Either there's one that they didn't know that these documents were missing and Biden had them, which means that there is a serious problem in the security and integrity of the National Archives processing. Yeah. Or they didn't consider them to be missing because
they were requested properly.
And they already had it documented that that those things had been given back to Biden or to anybody else. So it's yet to be seen. We have no idea why. But we do know that Biden's lawyers were the ones who self-reported that they had found this stuff. Yeah. So, and that's what's been reported so far. There's more comparisons to Trump. I think it's just interesting to see how the main difference isn't necessarily in all of the different nuanced details. It's how they've handled the situation. That's the main difference.
So, in my opinion, there are two main comparisons to the Trump document situation. Mm-hmm. The first of which is the level of cooperation. So Trump's lawyers and legal team, they waited. So National Archives reached out to them and said, hey, we want this shit back. Mm-hmm. And then they were just like, nah. And they didn't say anything. Or they were like, nope, he can have them. And it was like a whole thing for like a year. Yeah. And they kept and it got to the point where, the Department of Justice had to get involved to go get them.
Yes.
That was like a year and plus later.
Right.
In this situation for Biden, his lawyers and some other people a part of his staff came up on the documents and was just like, "Ooh, what the hell is this?" Okay,
Shit.
yeah, oh shit, what do we do? And like, I would assume, I don't know if same day, but it was very, very soon. They contacted the DOJ and they contacted the National Archives, and they were just like, "Hey, we found these.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're supposed to have them, but somebody need to look into this because what just happened, we don't want happening over here."
Right, exactly.
So that's kind of where the investigation started.
Yeah.
It wasn't because the DOJ was just like, let's go probe.
Right.
Or the National Archives or whatever. Like, people were actually honest. Like, we were playing Monopoly and we were looking for some shit to, I don't know, write down stuff on. And we found this folder that says classified. Yeah. And I don't think you should be having this. So check this out.
Right.
And so they did. And at that point, Merrick Garland and the DOJ and everybody else and National Archives was like, all right, well, we need to see what else is out there. And so that, I believe, happened on November 2nd of last year.
That's what I recall.
Yeah, 2022. And so they went in and found a bunch of documents. And then at that point, Biden's attorney, Bob Barr, and the legal team and whatever decided that, okay, if there are more of these, we're going to give you guys free reign to go find them because we don't want this to be a thing. So go find all of them, take all of them, and go away. That was their initial plan. Because I believe they assumed that what they found at that point was all of them.
Right.
And so they were just like, they're going to come in, they're going to take these 4 papers and be like, and then they'll search around and then there'll be no more. And then it'll be like, all right, well, this ain't even worth 1 page of news, so who cares?
Right.
Whatever.
Exactly.
That, I believe, from what I've read and understood, was the original plan.
That matches with what I read too.
Right. So that's one of the comparisons, or I guess maybe differences between the Trump situation and Biden situation. Another comparison is the number of documents.
Yes.
Trump had over 300. Oh, fucking hell, man. This fucking guy. 300 classified documents, top secret, skiff only, etc. None of them redacted.
Right.
Just out there in the open, chilling next to the pool.
And that's exactly why the National Archives is supposed to have this stuff sent to them first, is in order to redact them and make sure that there are no national security implications by them being left in a pool room somewhere.
Or next to a garage, just to keep it even. And so the number so I think they found maybe, I think it was either 4 or 6 documents on the 2nd of November. And then they went back another time after that, I want to say around end of November. And then there was another one early December. But the total of that doesn't even amount to 12.
Right. Exactly.
At that point.
Yeah.
And so when you compare numbers that are in the, I guess, teens, if you want to call it, or tens, to 300, like, there were boxes in Trump's pool room. Right. And what the DOJ recovered were all, like, people were out there, trudging back boxes of files.
Exactly.
And for Biden, it was these things. Now, another difference besides the numbers, we got the 300 to the 10 or whatever, is the locations.
Yes.
So all of Trump's were found in one place, Mar-a-Lago. All 300, whatever. Right. And so that kind of screams like trophy case.
And I think we mentioned that in the last episode, talking about this stuff, about how he's probably going to show this stuff off.
Yeah, like people. Check out this G.I. Joe document I got. Fucking. So yeah, it's all found in Mar-a-Lago at the hotel. Which, I mean, people people don't normally live at hotels, but this motherfucker, he lives at a hotel. So
Oh, that's a whole other episode.
It's the same, yeah, as being his house.
Right. He's not, yeah, nobody's supposed to be living there, but he is.
He fucking lives
strangely.
there.
Yeah.
All of them found in one location there,
Mm-hmm.
but then Biden's were found, I believe, in either 2 or 3 different locations.
There have been at least 2 that I've heard of.
Yeah. So
possibly 3.
his Delaware home,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was a DC office that he used when he was either congressman or vice president. No, congressman.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another that was I don't remember if it was for like an office that was for a nonprofit or there was some kind of organization.
Right.
So when you look at this, and this is just my interpretation, this isn't anything legal or whatever. It's like you can see that okay, when he was a congressman, he was working here and he had these documents.
Right.
And then he left and went somewhere else
Mm-hmm.
and left all of his shit there.
Right.
And then when he was at home, he was a vice president working on shit, whatever.
Yeah.
Left all of them there
Mm-hmm.
because now he's president, he's working at the White House, whatever.
Right.
And I really do think it might just be old man negligence.
Who knows?
You know?
That has to be that could be an explanation for either Biden or Trump.
Yeah.
Had Trump not come out and said, "But they're mine."
But they were planted.
Right. He gave himself he was the one who removed the old man defense from his defense. Biden, I think that's still on the table because
Right.
I mean
So here's the thing with that now. And just to keep it fair, remember when we did the other episode, we said that it was more than likely not malicious. He did not steal 300 documents for the purposes of like selling them to Russia or China or whatever for $1 billion.
Yeah.
It's probably not that. But maybe just to show off.
Right.
And so that was our, I guess maybe our out for Trump.
Sure.
And I think fair enough. An equal out for Biden, it was when you change positions, whether from senator to vice president to president or whatever, stop leaving your shit behind, bro. Pick your shit up and put the stuff in the right place. Because according to the National Archives, their statement on it, their only statement on it so far is that it seems like I think one set that they found, he's allowed to have those, but not at that place.
Right.
They're supposed to be in a specific place, kept in a specific place or whatever, and then they weren't.
Right.
So, it could be old man senile shit where, he's reading some shit by the fire one night and left it there, and then it stayed there at the fireplace for 3 years because old man brain.
Right. And the other avenue of this that applies to both Trump and Biden is that neither one of those men moved their own shit.
Yeah, you got movers, you got...
Right.
Yeah.
And as I was reading up on the timeline of this, I remember that there was a little bit of a transition. The person who was initially nominated to transfer the documents for President Trump resigned in December, so then it was a different person. So you can kind of see that it was a shit show.
There was some lapses and
Yes.
weirdness, yeah.
So, and at one point I remember seeing mention of Mark Meadows, the chief of staff for President Trump at the end of his term, was uninterested in following the instructions from the National Archives. So I do want to at least make us all aware that our perspective of this is when we move our own shit.
Yeah.
But the elitist people, they don't move their own shit. So from an elitist perspective,
but then
they're not going to really know, they're going to trust certain people to handle the documents appropriately. So I do at least want to mention that, again, Trump really fucked himself over by opening his mouth and spewing out shit, because I would have been able to give him the same, afford him the same defense of maybe he just didn't know because somebody else moved his shit, but
so
fucked that up.
I think also, now that you've mentioned like the Mark Meadows thing, is I don't think specifically for like the Trump team organization, whatever the fuck, criminal organization, I don't think they regard the National Archiving Service or whatever as like a real significant, purposeful, powerful agency.
They don't.
Like the way I think of it is, they look at it as like they're like a comic book club.
Right.
It's like, y'all collect documents, don't y'all?
Right.
Okay, I guess y'all want some documents back. We'll get around to it.
That's right.
We'll send you your copy, issue 56 if you want it back.
Right.
Like, they don't really understand the seriousness of
They don't.
them fucking documents is classified, my guy, and we could like have serious national security repercussions.
Right.
And
I think that's why it is important. Again, go back, listen to the prior episode for the specific history that led up to the Presidential Records Act being created in the first place.
mm-hmm.
People like Trump, Mark Meadows, they're not giving deference to the historical reasons why we have that law in the first place. Because Richard Nixon had the exact same perspective. He's like, it's mine. And the reason he said these documents and these tapes are mine is because he was trying to cover up a crime.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to dismiss the National Archives and say, oh, they don't matter, don't put yourself in that situation, because you don't want to have the stench of Nixon on you to say that somebody, I mean, we really honor that.
The Nixon.
We have this act for a reason, and it is to ensure that we, the people, own these documents. It's our office, it's our records, it's our history. And if anybody tries to skirt around that to say, I don't want you to have these documents, well, then instantly I'm going to think you're fucking covering something up, Nixon 2.0.
Yeah.
I have no reason to think otherwise. So it's a real simple thing. You'll get your documents back. Give them over. They'll archive them, and you can have them back. It's real simple.
If you're supposed to have them.
If you're supposed to have them, yes. And that's the thing. Maybe they just don't want somebody to tell them what to do. There's a higher authority here.
It always comes back. Whenever we're talking about this shit, it always comes back to hubris.
Yes.
Like, we can just do this. We're not gonna get caught. And if we get caught, we're not gonna get in trouble.
Right. And really, it's because there is no specific penalty named in the Presidential Records Act. It says if you violate this, you're going to get penalized with something. Because there used to be, for lack of a better term, gentleman's agreement that you do this because it's written in the law. They didn't think they would have to penalize somebody for not following it, because obviously they were thinking in the 1970s, Nixon was a pretty bad motherfucker. We don't want to have that happen again. We don't ever want to have the stench on us again. So there shouldn't be anybody who would question the fact that all eyes are on them in the White House and the Oval Office and everything the president touches. They have to know going into it that they don't get to keep anything until it's archived. So everybody, the American people, are going to see everything that they've handled. But Trump comes in and he's just like the bull in the china shop, and he's just like, oh, give a fuck. And he just decides that he's just going to violate laws and rules because, well, I'm never going to have any consequences. So, like, he's basically like, hold my beer. You think I can't do this? Hold my beer. And he's proving everybody wrong.
Bull in the china shop is such a great analogy, but like, I don't know. I might be racist. I don't know, for real. With this 2023, I don't want to offend nobody. I can't do it. No, I really did. I think at some point I read an article about that being like, we shouldn't use that. But I get it.
If we shouldn't use it, I'm terribly sorry.
Getting ready to do this, the most wonderful part for me today was minding my business, reading about this bullshit, and like not wanting to do it. I'll be honest with y'all, because I'm just like, I already did it for Orange fuck. So I'm going to do it again, because it's the same fucking shit.
Right.
Just give the stuff back. Yeah. And like while I'm reading, like while I'm having lunch, I was having a drink earlier, and I'm just like, all right, let me get ready for this. Let me finish, because I already had some notes from like 2 days ago. Yeah. So let me fucking finish whatever. Bling, 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 fucking alert. More documents found from Biden. And I'm like, son of a bitch, I don't have the time. I can't read all of these right now. I'm strapped. Yeah. But today, the 23rd of January, at 12:30 p.m., they found 6 more documents. Now, I know I know 6 sounds like a very small number and pales in comparison to 300. And like, so I guess we're like close to 18, maybe 20 now. I don't know, but it's not 300.
Yeah.
But it's just like, bro. So where did they find these? It was at his Wilmington home.
Beach home, I think. Beach house.
Beach home. Motherfucker, why this motherfucker got so many houses?
Good question.
First of all, he's been in Congress since 1973.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, you get money from to be buying off of, I guess, $174,000 a year. You can buy some fucking houses.
Well, that's what they currently make. That wasn't what they were making back then.
Yeah, but houses didn't cost $1 billion back then.
True.
God, dude.
We could do a whole episode on that.
Like,
We could do a whole episode on that.
somebody need to investigate where these motherfuckers get money from.
This is why we need term limits.
Yes.
Because people shouldn't
1973, bro. I was born in 82. I don't understand. That's kind of crazy. You can't be in government since fucking Studio 54 till like now.
Yeah. I was born in 79. You and I have done a whole fuck ton of living since we've been born.
Yes.
And he was in Congress prior to all
I was just telling somebody recently, I was just like, hey, stop talking to me like that. Y'all have some respect, because when I was a fully fledged functioning human, Germany was 2 countries.
Yes.
Don't fuck around.
Exactly.
Hey.
Yeah.
But yeah, that guy's been in office for since then in various positions, but just fucking annoying. Mm-hmm. So anyways, they found more documents at his Wilmington home. Now, to his credit, I hate giving him credit because I don't really like him. Like, I wouldn't eat with him. Like, it's like, just leave me alone. Yeah. But his credit, they gave the DOJ like full access to the entire house. They gave him the keys, whatever, and just like, go search. And so apparently they searched for 13 hours. And then when they were done, they found 6 documents that were supposed to be classified. Again, not top secret, not craziness, but supposed to be classified. And once again, we don't know if it was that these were requested or whatever. That's an ongoing investigation or probe or whatever.
Yeah.
But it just seems like there's a continuation of just like old man brain.
Yeah.
Go like everywhere he goes, he leaves documents. It's like the way, like, it's so bad. Like somebody who smokes like a pipe. And then everywhere you go, like you have multiple homes, you just forget your pipe.
Right.
I'll get a new pipe.
Yep.
And then you go to your other house and
there's just
you
leave one
at every place. That's what it's looking like.
Yeah.
And so because just to go back to the comparison, it's like all 300 were in one place. Rebel.
Right.
And then you have Wilmington home, and then office in Pennsylvania, and a DC office, and then this right here is just like, are you forgetting?
Right.
The documents every time you go? I wonder, you know what would be real funny? I just thought of this. You know what would be real funny?
What?
If they were the same documents found in, so every time he fucking leaves them somewhere, he's just like, where the fuck is, how come request them again? And he's just like, you know what? I'm still not finished with this work. Don't know where these documents are. And I'm gonna need those again. And then they fucking send them.
Yes.
And then he goes to the DC office and he's working on them, whatever. And then he leaves and he goes somewhere else. He's like, what the fuck? I can't.
And then meanwhile, National Archives is like, copy number 6, sent to Joe Biden.
Sent to Joe Biden.
They have to keep all these copies.
That would make sense.
That would be hysterical.
No, I want, if that ever comes out, because we have a history of like calling shit before it happens on this show. But if that was it, like, how many times did you request the same document? You've seen how fuck.
Right.
How many times? It was 4.
Only time will tell. Only time will tell. But I think it is, again, we could have given the same deference to Trump to be like, maybe he forgot, maybe he didn't know.
We couldn't. 300 though?
Well, again, I would still be waiting until the investigation was complete to make my decision as to whether or not he was doing anything nefarious. But he outed himself by admitting he took them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a major difference between these two, is he admitted to his crimes, and whereas Biden's like,
Biden's like, listen, I have a team of lawyers. If you need the keys to the house, talk to the lawyers.
Right, yeah.
And that's usually what people with lawyers do. don't talk to me.
Yes.
You don't talk to me. You talk to Joey, and Joey talk to me, okay?
Right. And I see Fox News getting so pissed off
Never on the phones.
At the White House press secretary, because she keeps saying, I'm going to refer you to the Department of Justice. I'm going to refer you to the Department of Justice. And they're like, well, why can't you answer our questions? Because she's smart.
Because I'm not a fucking lawyer. I don't want to.
She's smart.
Because then I'm going to have to take the stand at some point for some dumb shit that I said.
Yes, and they're just trying to do this gotcha thing.
Yeah.
Like, why isn't she answering any questions?
Maybe because she really doesn't know. And that could be honest too, because when I was looking at the timeline of this, apparently when the documents were found, whoever found them alerted Biden's attorney, and then Biden's attorney alerted the National Archives plus the DOJ, and then there was like one other person. In the circle of the person who found them, Bob Barr, which is the attorney, Joe Biden, and like one other person. I think it might have been like a chief of staff. And they were the only people who knew until the second batch was found. And then 2 other people were now in the know because I think they had to like go through them or whatever. So at that point, it was like 6 people knew. And then in December, it was like, all right, now we have to, I think it was like December 6th. Now we have to like make a statement or whatever because at this point, too many people know, and someone is going to leak.
Right.
So let's get out in front of this, or whatever. But in the beginning, only 4 people knew. So the press secretary might not have known, and still doesn't know all the details more than what she's reading in the news, like what we're reading, because from what I understand of Bob Barr, the Biden's attorney, he is like his nickname in Washington is he's a lawyer's lawyer.
Okay.
Like, he's fucking good.
Not like Rudy Giuliani.
No, he is not gonna be found in front of the fucking crematorium next to the dildo shop.
Hair dye streaming down his face.
Yes, this guy, he's about that business.
Yeah.
So, but I think the issue here is for him, as much as he's awesome, he has to toe this line between legal and political.
Right.
And what I did read in regards to that was that they didn't want to come out and make any statements that immediately Merrick Garland would come out and refute, because then that makes them look incompetent.
Right.
So
if there's an active investigation going on at any level, whether it's this situation we're talking about with documents and the transfer of documents and all that kind of stuff, or if you are in a situation where you're being accused of a crime, it doesn't matter. If you're part of an investigation, keep your fucking mouth shut. Any attorney, any good attorney would tell you that, and any good client would adhere to that advice.
Yeah.
So I really am just getting tired of the news media grilling for information, demanding to know. You don't fucking need to know anything.
Yeah.
It's all going to come out of
you don't need to know anything in an ongoing investigation.
In an ongoing investigation. We should definitely know once the investigation is complete.
Yeah.
But that's what's called tampering. You're tampering with an investigation if you are trying to meddle into it and distract them from actually researching what's going on.
Or trying to sway public or juror opinion, or shit like that.
Yes, we see this all the time with these public trials. The court of public opinion is louder than anything else that's going on, and so when the verdict comes in, well, it doesn't matter if it's guilt or innocence. Everybody's going to have their own opinions as to whether they were right or wrong, because we've been discussing it in the court of public opinion the entire time. And to that point about the court of public opinion, there's a lot of ignoramuses with bullhorns right now, and it's driving me crazy. What's really important for us to discuss in this is to be accurate. Like I mentioned earlier, if there is a potential for a president to be impeached over this kind of thing, we need to make sure that the public is aware of actual facts and not conjecture. And the number one talking point I have heard on TikTok, in these debates with right-wing people, the number one talking point is the vice president is not allowed to have classified information. And the first time I heard that, I was like, well, that person's stupid. And then the second time I heard it, I was like, are they talking to each other?
I'm just wondering where they come up with it. Is it just one random person thinks of it and they have a couple of thousand followers and it just kind of disseminates?
I don't know, but this spread like wildfire. Sure, it doesn't help that people like Jesse Waters on Fox News have a loud bullhorn too. For however it spread, it is widespread that the conservative and the GOP and right-wing people, voters and people who have opinions, seem to believe that Biden needs to be impeached because the vice president's not allowed to have classified information. Now, that's just...
Wait, let me just ask this very simple question, because I know other people don't know the answer. Maybe you know the answer. Isn't the requirement for having various different levels of classification just your security clearance?
It depends. It's not as cut and dry as that. But it is true to say in general,
depending on your security clearance, you'll be able to see this or that or in the SCIF or not or whatever.
It's really on a need-to-know basis. So if you are in the circle that needs to know and you have the correct security, then you will see it. So we're talking about...
the second in command of the country probably can see some high-level fucking shit.
Yes.
Because I'm pretty sure he has at the very least, the second highest security clearance that is allowable.
They have to have the same level of security clearance as the president because they are the second in line. So let me first of all say it is absolutely false. If anybody thinks that the vice president is not allowed to have classified information, it's absolutely false. And that's stupid.
Are they are literally in the business of creating the news. I can't deal with it anymore, bro.
I feel like people are really reaching with this. They're looking for any reason whatsoever to impeach Biden, and that's why they're saying absurdities. But let me just do my favorite exercise that I like to do with people who say stupid things. Let's take that to its logical conclusion, okay?
All right.
So let's say the person, you're president, I'm vice president.
All right.
You have security clearance, I have security clearance. Okay. If I ever had the opportunity, I would never want to be president. I would want to be a VP because I like to just kind of like help
be in the back.
I want to be in the background. I want to be doing some cool shit and I want to be supporting, but I don't want to be in the lead role. Okay. So you're president, I'm vice president. And this has happened many, many times. You go in for a colonoscopy and you're under anesthesia. So you give me the presidential powers for the couple of hours that you're going to be out.
Okay.
This has happened. George W. Bush did it. George H.W. Bush did it. Lots of people did it.
But
Trump did not.
But he didn't relinquish it because he didn't want Pence to be fucking president, not even for a second.
Not even for a second.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes. So
what a narcissistic fuck.
Exactly. So you're under anesthesia. I'm acting president. You're going to tell me that something goes wrong in your procedure and you die and I now become president, that I am now seeing classified information for the very first time.
Oh shit, we're at war with fucking Angola. I didn't know.
It's absurd to even think that this could be true. But I will give you an example. I will give you an example of when we actually were in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Franklin Roosevelt was our longest serving president. He was elected 4 times. At the beginning of his 4th term, he was in very ill health. But not a lot of people know that Harry Truman, who was vice president when FDR died, was not the same vice president that served in his prior terms. So when FDR ran for the 4th time and got reelected, Truman was his vice president. But Truman was newly his vice presidential running mate. They decided, for whatever reason, that this new vice president, coming to the White House for the first time in January of 1945, was not going to be told about the Manhattan Project. Remember what the Manhattan Project was?
Yeah, that's nuclear bombs.
Yes. So I think he was...
Why are you going to quiz me in the podcast in front of these people like I don't know shit?
Because I think most intelligent people do know about the Manhattan Project. When he was sitting in the Senate, Truman asked questions because he was like, I'm hearing things about this project. It had a totally different name.
Yeah.
When it was disclosed to some of the people in a need-to-know basis. And he was told, you don't need to know about this. And so Truman steps back and he's like, all right, fine, I won't ask any questions. Then he becomes vice president. He's still not told about this. And then FDR fucking dies in April of 1945. So after a couple of months of being in the White House, suddenly Truman becomes president. And
hey, bro, we've been making nuclear bombs this whole time. Just so you know.
Day one.
By the way,
Truman is told, yeah, we've got 2 bombs in the works. And remember that thing you were asking about when you were in Congress? Yeah, we were totally doing it. We just didn't want to tell you. So, by the way, you're in charge of this now, and you have to make some pretty big decisions. Think about how different history would be if Truman was actually told about it when he became VP a couple months earlier. He would have had a few extra months to really sit with this and think about it.
Yeah.
And consider and actually talk to FDR. We're talking about 2 people, president and soon to be president, who could have discussed this. And FDR, having had all this information from its inception for years and years and years.
Meeting with Oppenheimer and all them motherfuckers who was on the project.
Yes. FDR could have disclosed caution to Truman about using this weapon instead of him a few months later fucking dropping both of them and killing millions of people. So this is what happens when you don't let a vice president have information that the president has.
Yeah.
Catastrophic shit can happen. So I'm tired of people being ignorant about this.
I need to go look this up because, like, I know a lot about the Manhattan Project, but I didn't know of what you just said, that Truman wasn't in the know or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Because one of the most famous statements in the history of time was, I believe it was Oppenheimer, after the first test, he was just like, now I have become death.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. I suppose we all thought that, one way or another.
Yeah, it was kind of, it was really heavy. And it's like, at that point, Truman didn't know anything because that was the first test somewhere out in like Nevada or Arizona or wherever. Mm-hmm. And like, he had no idea what the fuck was going on. So had he had the opportunity, if I'm just working with what I'm just learning, you know, to have a conversation with these men or whatever, they'd be like, because Oppenheimer, I know from what I've read of Oppenheimer, he would have been like, don't drop this bomb.
Exactly. I'm sure that Oppenheimer had those conversations with FDR.
Bomb. You really shouldn't drop this bomb,
right?
My guy.
Right, exactly. So is this what the conservatives want to repeat? I just don't understand why people would be so confident in their ignorance to say that a VP can't have access to information, because it's really not a good practice to even think that that should be the way to go, let alone it's just not true. But it's definitely not the way that we want to do things around here. It's not okay. Anybody who is next in line to the presidency should have the same information as the actual president, because they should step in. With how many presidents we've had die in office?
Through various forms, whether it's assassination or just...
Yeah, with how many times it's happened. Funny little side note, the vice presidency was not always an honorable position. And back when Teddy Roosevelt was vice president, he was actually put in that position because nobody liked him in Congress and they wanted to make him shut up. So they're like, where do people go if we want them to
if we want to render them useless?
Yes, vice president. And joke's on them, because McKinley got assassinated and then Teddy Roosevelt became president, and he actually was a very good president. Yeah. So it used to be the vice president was where people went for their career to die. And because of how many presidents have died in office, that has been rendered moot, because VPs can step in at any time, and they often do. Yeah. So it's just stupid for people to believe that they can't see classified information.
Hello, friends. Beth here. As I was editing this episode, we had breaking news that classified documents were found in former Vice President Mike Pence's home. While I find it hilarious that the people who wanted to die on the hill of VPs can't have classified information just saw how the universe says, hold my beer, I thought I could summarize the whole situation in this lovely TikTok. Enjoy.
Did you take any classified documents with you from the White House?
I did not.
5 minutes later.
This is CNN Breaking News.
I want to bring you some brand new breaking news. Exclusive CNN reporting just into us. A source revealing, get this, another discovery of classified documents. Roughly a dozen government documents were uncovered at the home of former Vice President Mike Pence. That home is in Indiana. The search took place last week. The documents were found by one of the former vice president's lawyers. The FBI was immediately notified. This find, of course, flies in the face of repeated Pence denials that he held on to any classified materials when he left the government.
The second biggest talking point that I've heard from them is that Biden kept this whole thing secret. And we do have a lot of detail about the timeline of this, but I just want to mention Trump kept his secret too.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny to think about, oh, we didn't know for 2 months. Like, okay, it's 2 months, but whatever.
We didn't know about Trump shit for a year.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm going to give a little bit of information about how this went down. So the Biden lawyers informed National Archives and the feds that the documents were found in November. And so Republicans, right-wing media, conservatives are really upset that we didn't know about this until January of 2023. The Trump lawyers were contacted. I'm going to put some stuff on the screen here. So again, if you're audio only, come over to YouTube so you can see this on the screen, so you can actually see the primary sources of where I'm getting this information. Mm-hmm. Trump lawyers were contacted by the National Archives General Counsel in May of 2021. Now remember that Trump left office in January 2021. So in May of 2021, the General Counsel at National Archives was saying, there's some documents we can't account for. We need you to send them. Now, how come we didn't know about that? If you want Biden to immediately disclose that information, whoa, was that strong?
Oh, yeah, man. It's cool. I'm here. I'm here with you. I'm rolling.
All right. So if they want Biden to immediately disclose that there were some documents, well, then why didn't we know that National Archives had asked in May of 2021 that there were missing documents? We didn't know about that. So then National Archives released this. They released this correspondence that I'm referring to as part of a FOIA request, because lots of people were going back and saying, why the fuck didn't we know about this? So January 2022, that's when the 15 boxes of documents were sent to the National Archives. Mm-hmm. We didn't find out about that until February of 2022. So from January 2021 until February 2022, we, the public, did not know about this. Although there were correspondence between the National Archives and the Trump lawyers already, in which the National Archives was saying, y'all got some documents we need, and we want you to send them.
Yeah.
So we should have known about that, right? Why didn't we know? Why didn't we know? So he was told to send everything. Trump had told the National Archives exactly who was in charge of the transfer. And so this shows, in my mind, it could show intent to deceive and conceal documents when he was like, oh, that person's in charge of it. So he was made aware, like, Mr. Trump, in case you don't realize, all of your documents need to come to the National Archives. We're letting you know, because I think they had some suspicion that he wasn't taking it seriously. There was a rumor, and that was later confirmed and actually documented in the National Archives correspondence. Trump had a habit of ripping up documents and throwing them in the trash, and he was told repeatedly, you can't do that because these are not your documents, they're the government's documents. And so the National Archives archivist had actually put in the correspondence, we know that he had a habit of ripping up documents and your staff had to tape them back together. How are you addressing this situation? So they reached out to him preemptively, saying, President Trump, you need to give us all your documents. And Trump was like, well, this guy over here
is the president, and he's ripping up documents.
It's because old habits die hard,
Boo. This shit, dude.
Old habits die hard is what he said. Oh, I just can't change.
You just called me Boo on national radio, television. Stop it.
It's an expression. It's become a little bit more ubiquitous now.
I feel you. I'm just saying.
They had preemptively told him you need to turn these over because they kind of knew that he was probably going to be a little stickler about this. But Trump said, this dude over here is the one that's in charge of it. So if he didn't send documents, that shows he might have been trying to conceal and deceive. So in April of 2022, that's when the Department of Justice requested that the current president ask the National Archives to give the FBI access to what was in those 15 boxes of documents. The reason is because they didn't know what the level of classification was in those 15 boxes of documents that were handed over. And so the current president was asked to tell the National Archives to give access to the FBI. Because the current president's just like, I'm a bystander here. I don't really give a fuck what's going on. But so he said, sure, do whatever you want. And then the White House counsel's office officially requested that in April of 2021 that the FBI review them. But how come, or I'm sorry, in April of 2022, how come we didn't know? How come we didn't know that the FBI was involved at that point?
Because it was an ongoing investigation.
Exactly. So then in May, the Trump lawyer sent a request to the National Archives General Counsel asking them to delay referring it to the FBI because they didn't want, and this is key, Trump did not want Biden to see those documents because this is where the whole nonsense of the VP or somebody else can't see my documents because it's, what is he called, executive privilege. The former president was actually saying that the current president was not allowed to see the classified documents that he had. And that was in the correspondence reference that I'm showing here.
This man is such a child. I know. God.
But how come we didn't know about that, guys? Fox News, how come we didn't know about that?
How is he not dying?
On May 10, 2022, the National Archives sent a letter to the Trump lawyer basically saying your request is bullshit. And that's why the FBI raid happened. And we didn't know that the FBI raid was happening because Trump didn't tell us, even though he knew it was coming. They all knew it was coming because the FBI was saying, if you don't give us the shit we're asking for, we're gonna come and get it. So all of this rage about we didn't know for 2 months. Yeah. I'm asking specifically, how come we didn't know about Trump's situation until more than a year later?
Yeah.
And how come we didn't know about the FBI being involved until they raided his house? This disclosure bullshit is so stupid. It is an active investigation in both situations. It should have been kept private because we don't want the ignoramuses with the bullhorns to be tampering with the investigation or putting in their opinions to the court of the court of public opinion is terrible sometimes because they get it wrong. So we don't want these people, no matter how this turns out for Biden, there's going to be people who think it was corrupt.
Yeah.
So this is the result of that.
And it definitely could be. I'm not one to let Biden off the hook.
No, I mean, if he wasn't supposed to have these documents, I have no problem with giving him whatever penalty.
Yeah.
Because it's wrong. It's wrong to have them. You should keep them secure. You should follow protocol. So I have no problem. But it's just really hypocritical for people to be like, we didn't know for 2 months. Well, we didn't know for a fucking year. So
specifically for Biden, I know why the information was kept secret or away from the public. And that's because he has on retainer as his counsel a lawyer by the name of Bob Barr. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. If I'm not, so be it. And he was also Obama's personal attorney when he was president. This person is like known in Washington. He's a big deal, and he takes his job seriously. Mm-hmm. And I think his wife is also a part of the firm. And it has been said that she actually, I think she uses her maiden name. Okay. And so what I read in multiple places, AP, Reuters, etc. Reuters. Oh, God. You say penalized, and it's penalized. So don't. Okay. Anyways, that if you didn't know that they were a couple, you wouldn't know.
That's
Like,
the way it's supposed to be,
That's
right?
how professional that they are.
That's
like,
good.
It's crazy.
That's good.
And so this person, when they found the documents, on November 2, the instruction that he gave Biden and everybody else who were in the know was, shut the hell up, because we've contacted the DOJ, we've contacted the National Archives, we're going to come in, they're going to take the shit, whatever, and it's not even going to be a thing. And we move on with our lives. Because he didn't know. And I think that was good counsel at the time.
Sure, of course.
Because he didn't know that they were going to find another set another day.
Right.
And then another set another day. And then another set 2 days.
Right.
He did try to get in front of it by releasing a statement and, having... because Biden himself didn't release a statement. I believe either the team or himself or whatever released a statement sometime in December about the whole thing. And that's how we got to know about it.
Yeah.
But even with that, there was careful deliberation to not say or do anything that Merrick Garland is going to come back out and be like, that's bullshit, you're lying, you're wrong.
Exactly.
And then that would cause a problem. And so he has the delicate job of trying to manage politics and legality while being the lawyer for the president. And so he kept that quiet. Another reason people have speculated, it hasn't been said outrightly, is that when you found out about this in November 2, about the first set of documents, yes, the argument can be made that it wasn't a lot of documents, 4, 5, 6 pages or whatever, and it's just going to be nothing, and we're just going to blow over. It was that they, at that time, did not want to cause a late October surprise, because now we're in November 2, because the midterms were up on us.
Right.
And I believe, I remember this specific date for midterms. So Biden had
It's
obviously...
the first Tuesday after the first Monday in every November. That much I know.
Right. So the political part of it was that Biden had endorsed a bunch of people, and then you didn't want to have whatever was happening with these documents taint these people's chances of winning their election and whatever. And so people are just like, that's why you kept it secret or whatever. It very well could be a combination of both.
Sure.
Or just that one. However, it would be very politically expedient to do what they did. Because why would you ruin the chances of having a Senate majority over a couple of documents? So I understand it. Do I agree with it? I don't know, because I don't really care.
Right.
This is true.
Right.
I don't know. But that's a couple of the reasons why they were saying that Biden kept his secret, which is in very stark contrast to, we've been asking this for a year, and y'all ain't budging, so now we're sending the FBI.
Right.
And here we are.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it is just part of the process of trying to keep things under wraps for political purposes, that they wouldn't say anything. We still have to handle this regardless of what and the results of the investigation from the Department of Justice. I have to have confidence that it's going to that the investigation is going to be fair, and the investigation is going to show us, was he supposed to have them or was he not? And the same thing with Trump: was he supposed to have them or was he not? But I think it is very telling how a lot of people are drawing this narrative that Biden's attorney is doing all the talking, or the Department of Justice is working in favor of Biden. It tells you a lot about people's assumptions and how they view the government as it is.
Because the DOJ is not working in favor of Biden at all. They wouldn't have gone to every one of his houses and like all of this shit.
Yes. That's the thing, is that if somebody is holding the belief that the Attorney General is working for the benefit of specifically the President of the United States, that tells you what that person believes that the office should be doing.
Yeah.
Because if you assume that the government operates as they're supposed to within the law, then you would believe that the Department of Justice is separate. It's part of the executive branch, but it's separate from the presidency.
Yeah.
What we know from Trump's presidency is that he truly did believe that the Attorney General was supposed to work in his favor.
And shout out to William Barr. As much as I don't really like that motherfucker, he was not like under Trump's thumb.
Not always.
Not always. And definitely not towards the end.
Not towards
I
the
think
end.
towards the end he was just like, fuck this. I am
Yes.
not going down with this ship.
No, I mean, and that's the thing, is that the Department of Justice is supposed to operate separately because the Attorney General is the highest person in office for that branch. And they are supposed to execute the laws faithfully. Because Trump planted the idea in people's heads that
they
the
have to
Attorney
be
General is
loyal to
supposed to be
him.
loyal to him, that's why people are drawing this narrative that, well, Merrick Garland must be working for Joe Biden. That's not how attorneys general normally
I
work.
promise you, Merrick Garland don't give a fuck about Joe Biden.
Right. He cares
does
about
not.
himself.
He does not. Because,
Yeah.
matter of fact, I'll go out on a limb and say, Merrick Garland don't give one fuck about any politician. I'll go out on a further limb and say he don't even like not one of them.
Right.
Just because of the shit that happened where he never got a hearing.
I know.
Because if it was me, I would just like, if a politician even called me, I'd just hang up on him. Just like, fuck all y'all.
Yeah.
I'm out.
I don't think Merrick Garland's that petty, but you never know.
I would be.
You
I'd
never
be like, did you go talk to fucking Turtle Man and tell him to give me a hearing? No. Fuck you.
Right. And Congress is talking about, what's the phrase that they're using? Marjorie Taylor Greene is talking about defunding the FBI and defunding the Department of Justice, defunding the Attorney General, because they handle the pocketbook. So they're talking about just cutting off his salary so that Merrick Garland can't get paid for what he's doing. That motherfucker's going to work for free.
Because, yo,
He would work for free because he cares
I
about
have never
that.
seen a person care so much about, like, the job and the status and, like, the legal handling of, like, the law. Like,
Yeah.
and he got money. Like,
Yeah.
he ain't worried
He
about
doesn't
your
need to
little
get paid.
paycheck.
Yeah, the joke's going to be on them. If they try to defund the Attorney
It
General,
would be so funny. He'd
they'll
just
be
be like,
like,
cool.
all right,
Still working.
I'm going to keep working over here. So, yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's funny.
Well, Beth,
Yeah.
tell these people how they can reach us because we've talked a lot.
Yes. So you can catch us on all major platforms. I'm sorry, the alcohol's really kicking in, so I'm stuttering. You can catch us on all major platforms. We are on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we are on Twitter. I'm on TikTok. I'm going to put all those things below. We also stream audio anywhere you listen to podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to all of those different places. Give us the love and give us the like and help us get circulated. And we also have a Patreon. He's going to tell you about that.
Yeah, you can find us at patreon.com/mixedpolitics. And that is where you can give to us and support us through your donations. And then we give things back to you like hoodies.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
these.
looks nice.
Or you can ask a question and get it answered on the show. You can come be a member of our show. You can be a guest, and depending on how much you'd like to donate, we'd have dinner with you and, you know, have you sit right here between us.
Boom.
That would be cool. So we still are yet to have one such person do that. But I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of pricey. But you have various tiers, various levels, and we give back to you. You can be a member of our Discord. You can email us a question, etc., etc. So patreon.com/mixedpolitics. That is where you can go do this stuff.
Yes. All right.
So
Another
to our
episode. Analysts,
pundits,
and experts. Cheers. Another episode in the books.
I think I did this episode begrudgingly. Like I felt like I'm doubling up. Like I already talked about this shit.
I know, but I think everything we covered here is brand new information.
Yeah. Don't take fucking documents.
Yes. It's that simple. Don't take documents that aren't yours. How hard is that?
Maybe if I'm like rich and old and white, I like documents.
Maybe.